imagine, dream, let your mind wander. What is possible? What could be? Imagine a world, just try and imagine this. Imagine a world in which Henny, the Immortals player, was a dominant AWPer at Tier 1 events. Imagine Dennis from Mouse Sports actually had improved. And it wasn't, you know, that whole narrative of how Nico held him back was actually true in any sense. Imagine, and seriously, this will take Timothy Leary's mind on full Sandoz acid. Imagine Fox was a top player in CSGO. You probably can't, right? Few people could. But you could still fantasize by playing fantasy esports with EsportsPools. You'll be able to enter the main event there in a few days for TI7. You can bet on CSGO and Dota 2 at EsportsPools or esp.bet. Now, the format, rather the circuit for Dota 2 was announced for the rest of the year and then 2018. And what we've seen is there are going to be 11 majors, 11 minors, over an 8-month span from October 2017 to June 2018. Those majors must have a minimum prize pool of 500,000. They then receive 500,000 more from Valve. The minors must have a minimum prize pool of $150,000. They then receive $150,000 additionally from Valve for the prize pool. There's different organizers operating each event. You've got DreamHack, you've got ESL, you've got StarLadder, you've got like Dota specific ones like Mars TV, the Chinese one, GESC, Perfect World. You've got Epicenter, who obviously ran a CSGO tournament last year and a Dota 2 tournament. The general idea is that the top elite teams and players will play at the majors. The middle tier, they'll compete at majors and minors, depending on which ones seem reasonable and which ones they can qualify for. And lower tier players and teams will compete at the minors. Now, from this circuit that's been laid out in advance, they're going to have a qualifying points system, circuit points, which will be unveiled before this circuit begins and has full transparency so that teams can kind of figure out which events they want to attend or attend more events if they don't have enough circuit points to try and qualify, because that's what the circuit points are going to build into, helping you qualify in the end for the international for 2018, so TI8. Now, the reason why this is interesting is because CSGO is obviously another Valve software game. It's another very successful Valve software game. And yet the circuit, contrasted against what we've just seen announced for Dota 2, is woefully lacking in some ways, but is done differently. So in terms of revenue, from all the articles I could find online, in terms of actual revenue earned for the games, CSGO is very close to Dota 2. Like in 2016, supposedly Dota 2 made revenue of $260 million for Valve. CSGO made $257 million for Valve revenue. Now, that's only $3 million difference. Well, it was actually 257,200,000. So I guess it's 2,800,000 difference. So not much difference in terms of revenue. Yet, Dota gets significantly more attention, more events, more hands-on approach to the game. It has majors and the international, including crowdfunding components. I mean, I'll refer to that, the fact that I actually think that some of the aspects of criticism of crowdfunding are very much overplayed in CSGO. Tournament organizers in Dota get money from Valve for the prize pool. The circuit is announced in advance at this point in time, so you can plan out whether you're a player, a fan, an organizer, what's going to happen for the rest of the year. Now let's contrast that with CSGO. 2 majors per year. Minors, but they're just qualification system for the major. So as a result, if you're already someone who's in the mid-tier, but you made it to the major last time, you'll drop down in the major qualifier. You don't even get to play in the minor and make money from that. And definitely there's not as much prize money in those, either of them. Well, there is now in the majors for the new system. There used to be $3 million for the majors in Dota before. CSGO has had 11 majors total since 2013. Dota will have 11 majors in the next 9 months. There's no international in CSGO. I've addressed that in past videos. Crowdfunding exists through stickers, but doesn't go into the prize pool. Some pros and cons there, and certainly not as much money. Valve doesn't provide prize money for other tournaments within the circuit, just the 2 majors and the minors. There's no idea in CSGO what their circuit's going to look like when even the next majors are. We've only just got to the point now where after this last major, the PGL Krakow major, they've announced at least when the next major will be. We still have no clue who's operating it. And that's something that those organisers don't know. And so it's up in the air for them trying to plan ahead for that event, which is going to be at the beginning of next year. Now, first of all, this isn't necessarily a direct, this is better in Dota, and it's worse in CS in every regard video. That's not the point of it entirely. It's actually a very nuanced subject. Like, there are pros and cons definitely to each. The main aspect, though, I'll get into at the end, is there are certain things that quite clearly probably should go up. So first and foremost, it's not like we don't have those 11 majors in CSGO. Because when you look at the tournament organisers, these aren't all run by Valve. They have third-party operators. And like I said, you've got operators like DreamHack, StarLadder, Epicenter. Any of these ringing any bells? Of course they are. These are all people who run massive tournaments in CSGO. We have the DreamHack Masters. We have EPL Finals. We have ESL 1 Cologne. We have big StarLadder tournaments. We have Epicenter, just like they do in Dota. It's just that they're not called majors by Valve. We obviously have different terminology, and Valve doesn't contribute anything to the prize pool. So we do have a circuit comparable to Dota's. We have a lot of tournaments. We have IEM. We have StarLadder, we have E-League, which obviously they don't have in Dota 2 as yet, although they did a recent feature for the International, so maybe they're hinting that in future they'll have that. Now, it is worth pointing out, when you talk about how much money goes to each game and how you structure it, I will say this, while the revenue made from the overall game is almost the same for Dota 2 and CSGO, so in that world you say, oh, it's a bit lopsided, how this has contrasted this Dota 2 circuit against CSGO's circuit, I will point out that Dota 2 gets a lot more viewers as far as I can tell, but that is mainly due to China, because China is heavily involved in Dota 2 and makes up the majority of the viewers, actually. So the Kiev Major, which took place this year, had a viewer peak of 5.249 million viewers. But the Chinese stream peak was 4.83 million. The English stream peak was only 316,000. And the Russian stream peak was 473,000. So the actual Twitch peak, so not the Chinese people watching, was only 681k viewers. Whereas obviously we've had Twitch peaks of like over 1 million for CSGO in the past. So maybe there's more viewers in the West for CSGO, but there's way more in China total than in CSGO or in any region combined. So there is a lot more viewership over in China and as such in Dota 2, which would justify giving it more attention, putting in more to the circuit there, putting more money into it, because in theory that's better for the game. Now, one of the other aspects that I actually think is a positive for CS in not having some of these aspects of such a circuit announced ahead, that Valve decides all the operators and when the tournament's going to be and the prize pools and stuff. One aspect that I do like about that some people in CSGO would want this, personally I don't, is CSGO is more open. Like Valve gets to essentially decide who hosts the tournaments, when they host the tournaments, how they're going to do it, and then that builds into overall the Valve circuit. CSGO is more of the Wild West. There's more freedom as to who hosts tournaments. There's potential for creativity. You can come up with a different concept for something. You can have a major tournament that wasn't announced recently. It won't be major in the sense of Valve, but it can be just as good with less prize money perhaps. There's more competition between tournament organizers. They can battle each other to see which teams go to which event, not just have a space carved out for them by Valve, just by decree. And if you look at the major and minor circuit that you see for Dota 2, it looks quite arbitrary. Like Valve just sat down and said, right, you get one over here, DreamHack, you get one here, PGL, you get one over here, Perfect World. Where's the competition? How are they battling each other? Isn't each person just getting assigned one? I like the idea that if ESL kills it and does really well, they can destroy E-League. They can do way better than them. Or E-League could do fantastic as a new person coming into the tournament and maybe beat out DreamHack, who's an established people who've had majors in the past and many big tournaments. I like the competition aspects. I feel like it drives tournament organizers to try and reach for new heights and to do something special with their event and to change up the formats to please viewership and teams and get more teams and viewers. I kind of like that component. I like the open system in some senses. Now, this circuit does have benefits. Like, for example, it allows one to easily invite the teams for the international. In CS, if we had a system like this, we could do away with this whole legends nonsense and seeding teams based on the last major. And we could invite based on circuit points from the tournaments in the scene and have those teams attend the major and then others try and qualify through qualifiers. So we'd have more of a reasonable system overall. We wouldn't have a team potentially like a Hellraisers who maybe doesn't make it through the qualifier, but would have perhaps have been invited otherwise. And in the past, likewise for Immortals, for past majors where they didn't qualify. In general, what I would say, contrasting the two against each other, is despite the viewership disparity, I'd like it if there was more prize money coming from Valve to other tournament organizers. Whether that means they have to get their biggest event and put it forward. So let's say instead of the 11, we allow a lot of the tournament circuit to be open in CSGO. But let's say we have 5 majors in this sense. I'd personally change the terminology myself, like have like World Championships and then majors be like big tournaments like DreamHack Masters, like ESL 1 Cologne. I'd like it if those big tournaments, though, got some money from Valve to boost the overall prize pool for the players who are competing there, and to allow people to put on bigger events even and have more money for the event budget in that sense. I think that would be cool if we pumped up the biggest events in the scene and made it better for everyone. I'd also like it if we had a better invite for the big majors rather than these legend spots and bullshit seedings based on stuff that happened 6 or 8 months ago. I'd also like it if we had a schedule laid out at least for the biggest events. Okay, not for every event. Leave some space for creativity. Leave some space for people who don't know yet what event they're going to host and then figuring out on the fly a few months before if they can get everything together. But for the big events, for the DreamHack Masters, for the big ESL 1 Cologne type events, for a massive star series if they want to run one of those, have these events laid out months in advance so that teams and players and fans know in advance where the rough skeleton of the year's circuit's going to be, and they can make decisions based on that.
Welcome everybody. Blessed are those that visit this channel and enjoy the content here.
Hi, this is Spencer Hiko Martin,